9.2 Multi-step equations. The equations that we've done so far have just been one-step equations. Today we're going to talk about multi-step equations. In order to solve a multi-step equation, the first thing you want to do is collect like terms on each side of the equation. Then move any variable to one side of the equation by adding or subtracting. Move any numbers to the other side of the equation by performing the opposite operation. And you always should do addition or subtraction first and then multiplication and division second. Okay, so let's solve number 1. We have 3x plus 1 equals 13. We want to get the x by itself, and like I said, we always do addition and subtraction before we do multiplication or division. One way that I like to think about it is think of your variable as a present. Well, in order to open a present, you have to take off the wrapping paper before you can open the box to get to the present. So that means we start with what's farthest away. So if we have our variable inside a box and then we have wrapping paper around it, well, it's like that number that's farthest away, that's the wrapping paper. So we have to undo it first. We got to get rid of it first. So how would we get rid of the 1? We would subtract it. So let's subtract 1. Whatever we do to one side of the equation, we have to do the same thing to the other side of the equation. So that gives me 3x equals 12. Now, the 3 and the x are being multiplied, so to undo that, we're going to divide. And that gives me x equals 4. And then remember, the way that we check an equation is we plug it back into the original equation. So this is saying that x is 4, so we're going to plug 4 in where the x is and solve it to check. 3 times 4 is 12, and 12 plus 1 is 13. So that means that our answer is correct. For number 2, again, we start with what's farthest away from our variable. So we're going to start with the negative 2. To get rid of it, we're going to add 2. That gives me negative 5x equals 15. Divide by negative 5. And x equals negative 3. For number 3, what's the first thing we're going to do? We're going to get rid of this negative 3. So to do that, we're going to add 3. That gives me 3/4 x equals negative 6 plus 3 would be negative 3. All right, so remember, right now this fraction is being multiplied times x, so we need to divide, but we can't divide a fraction by a fraction. We have to multiply by the reciprocal. So the reciprocal of 3 over 4 would be 4 over 3. And we got to do it to both sides. That gives me x equals, this is like a negative 3 over 1. Negative 3 times 4 would be negative 12. 1 times 3 is 3. And a negative 12 over 3 would reduce to negative 4. Number 4, we have an x on each side and we have a variable, a constant on each side. So it doesn't matter which thing we move first. We can move any one of these 4 terms first. It doesn't matter if the x's are on the left or on the right. It doesn't matter if the numbers are on the left or the right. We just need to get the x's on one side and the numbers on the other side. I'm going to subtract 36x from both sides first. But if you wanted to do something else first, that would be okay. All right, so that gives me a negative 20x minus 8 equals 7. Now that we are at this point, We do not want to get our equation lopsided. If we can ever help it, we don't want to get our equation lopsided. And what I mean by that is we don't want to move everything over to the same side and not leave anything on one side of the equation. The reason for that is I see students do this all the time. They'll move everything over to one side and then they'll say, oh wait, where's the equal sign? And they just stick it in there and then your signs end up being wrong and you get the answer wrong. So try not to get your equation lopsided. All right, so I'm trying to get the x by itself, so I'm going to move stuff away from the x. I got to start with what's farthest away first, which is the -8. So I'm going to add 8 to both sides. And that gives me a -20x equals 15. -20 is being multiplied times x, so I'm going to divide by -20. All right, so that gives me x equals -15 over 20, and that would reduce to a -3 over 4. In number 5, all right, so I see that there's an x on both sides of the equation. And like I said, we don't want to get it lopsided, so I would not move this 4x to the left side. I would move the 3x to the right side. It's a positive 3x, so I need to subtract 3x to get them to cancel out. That leaves me with a -5 equals 4x minus 3x is 1x, which would just be x. So that actually ended up only taking one step. Okay, in number 6, we have everything on one side of the equation. So this equation is already lopsided. Well, we can't do anything about it when it starts out that way. But like I said, if we can help it, then don't get it lopsided. So the next thing that we need to do is to combine like terms. Our like terms would be these two terms with x's and then the terms without x's. Okay, so 5x minus 1x would be 4x. And then this -9 and +5, that would give me -4 equals 0. Now I need to start moving things away from the x. I'm going to start with this -4, and to move it, I'm going to add 4. And then to get rid of the 4 that's touching the x, I would divide. And we reduce our fraction, so our answer is x equals 1. Okay, for number 7, I have 3/4 x minus 1/6 equals 1/5. So I need to get stuff away from the x. This is a minus 1/6, so I'm going to add 1/6 to both sides of the equation. That gives me 3/4x equals 1/5 plus 1/6. Well, I need to add those together, but I can't because they don't have a common denominator. So I need to find a common denominator to add these two together. Well, the least common denominator between 5 and 6 would be 30. So I need to multiply both the numerator and the denominator by 6 to make that to be 30, and both of these times 5. Alright, so I get 3/4x equals 6/30 plus 5/30, which would give me 11/30. Now to get the x by itself, I need to remember what we do again. If we have a fraction connected to our variable, we're going to have to multiply by the reciprocal, because we can't divide a fraction by a fraction. We multiply by the reciprocal. Okay, so these would cancel. And then I can, well, nope, those won't. well, it would reduce a little bit. Let's go ahead and multiply. So that would give me 44 over 90. All right, and then I can see that both of those I could divide by 2. So that would give me, let me write it up here. 22 over 45. So x equals 22 over 45. And that would be my answer. All right, we have one more that we're going to look at. And this one contains decimals. Okay, so we need to combine like terms because we have some x's and we have some constants on the same side of the equation already. So let's do that. My -4 and -4x and my -1x would give me a -5x. And then the -4.8 and -6.8, if I'm going to add those together, I'm going to add them together because they both have the same sign. 8 plus 8, that would be 16. I would carry the 1, and then that would give me 11. And then since I'm adding, anytime you add or subtract, you use the sign of the biggest number. So that would be a -11.6. All right. And then I need to get the x's on one side and the stuff without x's on the other side. So I'm going to add 4x to both sides. Let's see. Let's just keep that separate. All right, so then that would give me a -1x minus 11.6 equals 7.9. All right, then I'm going to add 11.6 to both sides. And that gives me a -1x. The signs are the same again, so I'm going to add. That would give me 15, 9, 19.5. Now, we're not done yet because I have a negative in front of the x. Even if I wrote it like this, I don't want to know what negative x is. I want to know what positive x is. So I always have to get rid of the negative if I have a negative in front of my x. And to get rid of that -1, I'm going to divide by -1. And a positive 19.5 divided by -1 would give me a -19.5. And that's how we solve multi-step equations.